Rahubat. Yasar. Hope everyone is doing okay. I wanted to just do a continuation of, take advantage of this live Facebook, as well as do another class continuation of a nation of our own, and kind of clarify just a few questions that people have in regards to our doctrine, in regards to our nation, and the upliftment of our tribe and our people worldwide. This is a very trying time for us, considering the day and time that we're in regards to our fathers and chiefs' freedom, our president's freedom, the condition of our nation, the conditions of the world, the state of the world it's in, and the direction that the world is taking a turn, the direction it's going in, considering that, we've been warned about this day and time for a very long time. The master teacher, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, has informed us about what would take place 2016, 2017. He's informed us of various prophecies that would unfold, and that those that held on to the rope shall receive their crown of life. And as bleak and crazy as the world looks, there's still hope. There's still direction. There's still a fight. There's still our culture. Our culture still exists. Our language exists. Our land exists. Our chief, our president, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, is still alive in flesh with us in this day and time. And, it's important that we as a family, as a tribe, as a nation, stay together, stick together, work together, make sure that we stay focused on our goals, stay stuck to each other, stay building, stay delivering wu-nuwaupu and showing our culture. Make sure that we are totally 100% involved with the freedom fight on all levels. Make sure that we stay on due course in our studies and drown out a lot of the negativity that's been coming our way. It's important that we remember the reasons why we acknowledge and accepted wu-nuwaupu within ourselves, our experiences as a new being by natural nature, being grown into who we are, and by the blessings upon the Asaru, wu-nuwaupu, our people are waking up, hopefully in time enough for us to get out of here and get back to Africa, which is the ultimate goal and the direction that our Father wants us to go, leaving here and getting our feet back on the land, getting him there so he can heal himself, so he can rejuvenate, being incarcerated for 15 long years, you know, locked in the belly of the beast, underground, being tortured by human devils, being abused, defamed, character assassinated, all types of international violations and rights of his has been just trampled upon. And the devil is using separation of us as a nation, as a tribe, to cause confusion. And it's important that we all remain and acknowledge that we all are on the same page. And coming from the embassy of the United wu-nuwaupu Nation, our job is to make sure that we all are on a unified front to affect the world, the mentality of the world, and change our conditions, change our environment, and create a better future for our youth, a better future for our children, a better future for our ancestors, our elders, and the preservation of us as a whole. And so, I feel like it's imperative that these classes are done, and we can always stay connected in a way where we all have the same vision. We all have the same focal point, because that's the power of the mind and the magic that we have to create visual realities. What we look at and what we view will be able to in our minds manifest the reality in the physical. And these are sciences that we knew as Nuwaupians in ancient Afafare Ka'u in our lands, the mystics and the mysticism, the doctrines that they used to create this perfect environment where they lived of, for, and by each other, where they loved each other. There was no outside influence or six ether influences that caused them to separate. And so we're looking for a better future. We know that the Antichrist is here, and the world is changing very fast. The prophecies of our Father is written in Leviathan 666, which was first published in the late 60s, early 70s. I think 1970 was the first publication. You see here, this is part 1 of 4. And this is part 2. So actually a 4-part series. And this 4-part series goes into the layout of how these beings, Anunnaki, as they called in the scriptures, Molech, Malachim, Elohim, these different beings who have incarnated on the planet in the form of these various deities that the religious world worship as their gods, as their landlords. Raubat, all eyes. And these beings will be revealed and are being revealed very shortly. We know this land is controlled by Enlil, and this is the garden that was laid out to breed this new being in the image and after the likeness of the Mukasu, called the American Negro. The American Negro, it took 400 years for this American Negro to be bred. And this American Negro being bred took place after those European societies attempted to breed themselves into Africans in order to protect their blood. They attempted to do this in Afafere Ekau on the various coasts, the West African coast, which they failed to do because of the blood, the plasma that we had, they couldn't mix in. So they chose to use the enslavement of the indigenous and Africans worldwide in this, that was brought to this land to breed this new Negro that could work and live and look like the European in his image and after his likeness. And with that being said, you have the result of Negroes today who fight against their very own freedom, because in their genes is the mentality, slave mentality, that they have to get permission from the Mukasu, the Caucasian. They have to get permission from this decrepit beast because of the fear of the authority that they claim to have over us. And this breeding has affected the genes of our people here in this country. And it's sad to say, because the religious doctrines that has enslaved the minds that was given to this American Negro and given to their blood, their genes, and placed in them by fear, is the reason why you have so much chaos and confusion regarding the unity and the love that we're supposed to have in order to accept ourselves and love ourselves for who we are and what we are. And as our master teacher explained, this has been one of his most difficult jobs. Difficulty insofar as his biggest obstacle in reaching those that he came to teach. There's always someone who has doubted his position, has doubted the doctrine, though he has proven himself with 1,200 publications to date, speaking 19 languages and translating all your books, your so-called religious books, from their original text, word for word, date for date, map for map, time for time, proof after proof, being right over and over and over, never been proven wrong. The doctrine has always stood the test of time. There's no one on the planet that has been able to answer the questions in which he has put forth in these books. They always attack the person. They seem to have a problem with him as a person, and they really don't know him. They just address his so-called life, personal life, that as if they know his so-called personal life, which he rarely had a personal life, because he dedicated his life to us and freedom of our nation and our people. So it's up to, Nuwaupians today in this day and time to make sure that we carry out the works of our Father, make sure that we let the world know that we are unified, that there is no division amongst us, period. There is no division amongst the family. We are standing close to each other, next to each other, and we're going to carry out the mission as he envisioned. And he placed certain people in a position to where, we have an obligation and a duty and a responsibility to make sure that our people are stay uplifted. Make sure our people understand that we do have a fight, that he will be free, that we are bringing him back to Africa, back home, that he will be healthy again, that he will be amongst his people again. But that's up to us to make sure that we do that. And in doing that, it takes concentrated effort to recognize the confusion. It takes concentrated effort to realize that a lot of the confusion is because of ignorance and people not knowing and not understanding, because this is the devil's game. The more we punch, the harder they punch back. We have to punch harder, they're going to jab you back. And so he's not going down without a fight. And and so I've been doing my best to, the embassy has been doing our best to make sure that we carry out our obligations as fathers, as sons, as wu-nuwaupu men, as teachers, as students, as family, regardless of the differences, regardless of any disagreements. That's family. Family has disagreements, but that has nothing to do with our overall unified effort of freeing our father, focused on his life and make sure that he's out of those conditions. And so, I'm just doing my best and bringing a little information in regards to, this day and time, and understanding that we are in a very trying time, and many people feel it. It's a countdown with Obama getting out of office. We want to make sure that we support all efforts. The petition is still moving. We have the clemency application that's still in regards to President Obama, freeing him and granting clemency or pardon. And so we want to make sure that that's something that we spearhead. We also are looking at Africa assisting and making sure that our father is repatriated back to Liberia or Ghana, or a West African country that understands the plight of wu-nuwaupians here. The wu-nuwaupians here all over the world. We are scattered people, but we are unified. We are a large people. People may only see us here in the U.S., but there's wu-nuwaupians all over. It's wu-nuwaupians in Jamaica, it's wu-nuwaupians in Barbados, London, the Caribbean, all throughout South America, especially Africa, is all throughout African countries, 54 of them. There's many wu-nuwaupians there. The doctrine is growing incredibly out there in Africa, and shout out to all the my wu-nuwaupians that are on the continent. They're doing a lot for his freedom, and they are moving forward in various rituals, praying rituals to our ancestors, and asking them for assistance in our plight over here, and it's working. It's helping the master heal himself there and recharge himself. Being that he is inside of a rock, that the purpose of having him inside of a rock is to keep him from moisture, keep him from the sun, and to charge his being and rejuvenate his cells, and keep him from certain foods that he eats to help his body, being that his body is specially designed was specially designed for us in this day and time, because of the large amount of affirmation and the beings who do utilize his body for specific purposes. Many may not understand what that means, but him being bred by natural nature, and certain operations actually that took place in the womb, and it happens in the womb of different beings on the planet. We get into this extraterrestrial talk because right now the planet Earth they're about to be informed on a large scale of these overlords who are coming to harvest. And this is the purpose of this 50th Jubilee, which is the time in which they're celebrating with this great trumpet that is being blown. This trumpet that they spoke about in the book of Revelations, where it speaks about Raphael blowing his trumpet for the great gathering. And this great gathering was a jubilee or a jubilant ceremony for the transition and the bringing in of this Antichrist, which he has laid out with making contact with Jerusalem and Israel and the building of this new temple. It's spoken about in Leviathan 6:6 in regards to the extension of Israel being a state of the U.S. That's why it's called the state of Israel as opposed to the nation of Israel or the country of Israel. It's because it's actually an extension of the United States. The United States has backed Israel 100%, has always backed their military and financed them and has never chastised them or vetoed any vote that allowed them settlement in the Palestinian area, which has to do with Britain and the Arabs, and you go into the whole history of that in the Leviathan. And that Leviathan, it touches on the Balfour Convention. It speaks about how, you know, the deals was made for this settlement of the Euro Jews coming out of Germany and Europe to settle in this state of Israel. And so Trump just recently made his connections to Israel, and they're about to align. They're about to align with Russia, Gog and Magog, and USSR, as the master always explained, meant United States and Soviet Russia. And so these things are unfolding. The Molochs have returned, the Elohim have returned, and they coming to collect their harvest, and those that are in the way will be sacrificed and offered up. And it's our job as Nuwaupians to make sure that we stay out of the way, because the time is at hand. And what's imperative and priority for us right now is really to get our Father home and make sure that we get out the way, because the destruction of the planet is upon us. And we want to make sure that we're safe. We want to make sure that our children are safe. And this is not a doomsday conversation. This is prophetic. This is Panatharu working, the other extraterrestrial beings working on behalf of their races. And we just have to make sure that we're all on the same page and on the same frequency, because the devil is relying on us not to be unified. He's relying on the confusion. He's relying on us, as the master teacher explained, that he's causing the actual the fight. His freedom fight is creating a separation amongst the tribe, amongst the nation. And we want to make sure and make it clear that Nuwaupians are not separated. Nuwaupians are together. Regardless of the different projects and things that's taking place around the world as far regarding his freedom fight, we all are on the same accord. We all are on the same frequency, and everyone has their mandates and jobs that we have to do, but we're still doing them collectively. Right back to the people that's coming in. And so we want to be able, that's a quick introduction to kind of get clarity on where we are as a nation. We have the ball coming up, and the master wants us to make sure that we support the ball 100%. He wants us to make sure we support the petition and the unified efforts of the clemency. He wants us to make sure that we support the African fight. African national, him as being an African national, as a Liberian national, as a Ghanaian blood-born national. That's important because it shows of his actual origin, and the fact that he needs to be back home. That the U.S. lacked jurisdiction over his person from the very beginning. That he was indeed a Liberian diplomat, as well as a Liberian Raubat Tefnut, Raubat, other family that joined. He is by blood a Ghanaian, and he deserves international protection because of the human rights violations, because of the torture, because of the list of violations is too long to list right here, and it's kind of lengthy considering it's been 15 years. And in international law, a continuing act is called actus reus. It's the continuing of an international wrongful act, and that means that once an injury has occurred, which has occurred to us, an injury to our nation, and the continuing act creates more legal obligations and more legal consequences. And thus, the United States is in breach of international law on several levels, and these acts must cease. Reparation should be made, and the satisfaction and guarantee that there will be not a repetition of these acts. And this is all in law. International law of responsibility dictates the effects of injuries as such, and these injuries against our body is tremendous. I mean, you're talking about genocide, you're talking about ethnocide, you're talking about cultural cleansing, destruction of indigenous lands, exploitation of indigenous resources, forced removal, and the list goes on. And so, you know, the abuses that we have taken has taken a toll on a lot of our people, mentally, emotionally, physically, because we were forced to move into an environment that hates us. You know, that has to be taken into consideration. When a nation is forced off of territory, lands that's theirs, where they're used to governing and living of, for, and by each other, and you're forced into an environment that doesn't accept your culture, that doesn't accept your way of life, that doesn't accept your language, then you have to assimilate out of fear of persecution. And for this to be happening in this day and time it's really absurd, and it's a gross violation. It's just I mean, the words to describe these atrocities is something that's never happened in the international community. You have never seen a nation in 400 years that has attempted to free themselves from tyranny, racism, bigotry, and where we have to accept, and we continue to accept and act this being who has no rule over us. And I think a lot of us still have a problem. The American Negro, the blood that's inside of most of the Africans in America here, they have a problem with understanding that they have no rule over us. It's something that when you estoppel a right. If a person takes the position of adjudicating law to say that we are a government, whether it's the state of Georgia or it's the states uniting as the federal government, when you say that you have the authority to administer justice, and you administer justice initially in a way that it has this disparities against the indigenous and Africans, or people who are not of we the people, and you claim that you have the ability to incarcerate, or you have the ability to make laws to judge or condemn a group of people that you enslaved and considered property in the very beginning, and then abuse, rape, rob, kill, everything under the sun that you can think of criminally in the international community, and you acknowledge that you've been doing these things, these atrocities, and you've abused these people that you claim to administer justice over, then you lose your rights. You have no right to administer justice. You have no right to incarcerate. You have no jurisdiction over those people, because your initial establishment was based on desegregate. It was based on abuse. It was based on slavery. The entire union that was created by we the people was a slave union to look at us as property. And so you can't come back and say, well, we don't see you no longer as property now. We want to give you a fair shot. It doesn't work that way. So for us to constantly accept the fact that he has power over us, constantly accept the fact that he has the ability to rule over us, to constantly accept the fact that his laws still stand over us, is the minds of the American Negro creating his power. We're creating his power over us as a people. And in creating his power, you're saying he has the ability to dictate who and what we are and what we can and cannot do. And so the obstacles that the great leaders have been faced with, including the one in this day and time, the master, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, this is the biggest obstacle. It's always been the black devil. The black devil has the ability to he was used by the Mukasu in our organization to dismantle everything that we built. And that mentality still exists, and being that mentality exists, this is what we're up against. We're up against people saying you can't be free. People are saying you can't be independent. You're not a real nation. You're not a real, you don't have this or you don't have that. And they begin to compare our nation as if our nation came out of the same birth as everyone else. Our nation was born under different circumstances. Not all nations are born the same way. People are comparing the Nuwaupian nation to, say, China, or they're comparing the United Nuwaupian nation to, say, Peru, or other nations. Like they say, well, why don't you have this and why did you? But the thing is, they're not understanding that we were in our growth, in our birth in 1992, right? In 1992, when we were born, when a baby is born, it needs help. It needs assistance in its birth. It doesn't mean that the rights of the child is any less different than an elder. So when you say, well, you don't have an operating government, that's like saying to a child, well, you're not in first grade yet. Therefore, because you're not in first grade, you don't have the rights to exist. That's the same comparison. When our nation born, we were establishing ourselves and moving in a direction where we were gaining complete independence. And it was up to the international community, including the U.S., and assisting us in that right and moving forward so we will be able to reach our full potential without any hindrance. But that wasn't the case, because when you look at the moment we began to build, we had these colonizers down from these people called the state of George, or the condition of this King George, and we discussed that before, that wanted to maintain colonial rule over us and came out against us and said, you can't build temples, you can't build schools. And so these effects hurt us and stopped our birth. It made us, it hindered our effects, and liberty and independence is irreversible. In the international community, the moment a nation begins to take its steps towards independence, there's nothing you can do about it. You cannot reverse that. And this is what our nation has to understand. Our people have to understand that we're still in the process of taking those steps. And if you relinquish those rights to nationhood, if you relinquish those rights as a tribe, if you relinquish those rights as acknowledging our president, if you relinquish our chief Black Eagle, and relinquish all of those rights, then you lose them, and you have undoubtedly acknowledged that you are up under the Mukasu's rule. So it's important for us to stay together, and our nation is still thriving. Our people are still the doctrine is still coming out. Our culture is still being, our cultural dress, our cultural garbs. The sisters, our brothers, the various organizations that our nation consists of is still on the move. Our Parar are still working together to get the wu-nuwaupu out to the world. So we still are on the move. We still have life, and we are likened. This is why the master teacher, Dr. Malachi K. York, has told us about our state flower, our nation's flower. Our nation's flower is the lotus, and the lotus is a flower that it says, I'm gonna pull it up real quick so we can kind of see exactly what the lotus represents and why it's so important to us in this day and time, because of what it represents and its qualities. They call it stacies, right? When you say stacies, you're saying that stacies is the ability for a plant or life that exists inside of an object to be rejuvenated. All right, and this information about the lotus is the fact that it can revive itself. That's what's important. When a lotus revives itself, one of the oldest known revival of a lotus happened 1300 years ago. It lived. This plant was not planted. It existed for 270 years outside of just outside its natural environment. It was just a seed, and it was found in 1994. And that seed, it became sacred because the moment they planted it, after 1300 years, it germinated. It actually grew after being out of water, out of sun. 1300 years later, they planted this seed. It was discovered over 1,000 years, over 1,000, 1,300 years, and it revived itself after it was planted. And so that means that this lotus had the ability to grow out of what? The murkiest of conditions. Even when they think or thought that, it was dead. And this is our nation. Our nation is likened unto the lotus, because under the murkiest conditions, in the so-called the coming out of the depths of the beast, where it doesn't look like life exists, where they look like they trampled over us, and they came and destroyed our property, came on our land and tried to destroy everything that we built. And then now our nation is blossoming out of these conditions. This is symbolic of the natural nature that our nation has within our genetics, within our genes, to blossom out of these conditions. And this is why it's important for us to make sure that we stay rejuvenating ourselves. We stay feeding ourselves wu-nuwaupu from the rays of the sun, that paree that the master teacher has given us with his golden hand, the golden rays of that sun, planting and seeding and giving life to everything on the planet. And this is what allows us to grow. And so we've grown out of these conditions, and we're here. And so it's important that we actually realize that this is our nation's flower. And so I just pointed that out so you can understand the secret behind that lotus and the lotus dance that sisters may do. Is different dances of the lotus that shows that the petals unfolding like the consciousness of the mind. And this is ties into the Angtui, because when that double resurrection takes place, the petals of your mind were supposed to unfold, and the conscious acknowledgement of us being free and having life after life, the life that they said we had and the life that we are creating for ourselves in the hereafter. That lotus petal coming off on your brain, unfolding to where you're able to mesh into this new conscious biological atmosphere that's being introduced into the planet, and with these other species are being removed and being removed off the planet, you will be able to grow in your own environment in Africa, where the gateway is to get up out of here, which is the reason that we're journeying home or going home, because Africa is the reconnection of the gateway out of here through the stars, back to Orion, back to whatever heavenly abode that your ancient ancestors exist in, and taking that elect few that is supposed to make the journey to leave. And so this is the importance of freeing our president, because he actually knows the gateway. The Abasa tribe over in Liberia, they knew these gateways, and this is something that was discussed and I'll go over it a little, where the master expressed the certain tribes that came out of, and the migrations that came out of Liberia, which ties him into that tribe Abasu, or Abasa, which means rock, because of the characteristics of the Abasa tribe. The Abasa tribe were hard workers, and the Nuwaupians and the Patans, or Abasa, comes actually as you can find them in Genesis chapter 10 verse 13. And so this describes our people and the effects that we have because we worked hard, because we were able to rejuvenate ourselves and always able to stay alive. We were ones that fought off a lot of the slave traders when they came to West Africa. And because we were solid, we were foundation, we had a strong spiritual backing and a connection to our ancestors, we were known as the Abasa people. or it comes from the Abyssinians that traveled over into from ancient Nubia, those Akan tribes. And I'm going to show you a map that we have to discuss those migrations, because these questions is some questions that we can start asking. You can start asking to try to pinpoint our tribal migrations and kind of identify exactly who we are, and which is the reason when you identify who you are, you know exactly the characteristics of tribes that you're from. And there's a certain amount of tribes that exist in the United Nuwaupian Nation. A lot of them are indigenous, but also there's African tribes that mixed in Mississippian area with the Muskogee Creeks and the Yamasee over in Ghana, and the Yamasee here is a connection there. There's also a connection between the Akan tribe and the Napatans or Nuwaupians that traveled beneath the Islamic slave trade, which will tie into the Moors and how the Moors themselves, the master teacher tried to tie in the Moors with our doctrine in order to assist the Noble Drew Ali family with tying up under a one nation so we can fall under one flag. And so we're just trying to, if you got any questions, feel free to address it. But I'm gonna go over this just a little lesson from the master in regards to the Abasa people and the pharaohs that came out of ancient Egypt and tied into Ghana, the Old Kingdom, which is actually one of the gateways out of here. Well, gateways to the stars. It's actually in Ghana now, shifting from the Giza Plateau, the Orion's belt. Because of precession, it shifted the location of Orion's alignment to another location on the planet. And so, with that being said, all of them are part of us, because the migrations of the tribes and the slave trade intermixed us all, and thus you have in our family various tribes from various different places. That's why you see different noses, different eye shapes, but we're all really the same people because of the actual blood and the origin going back to Tamaray. But there was a question from Imhotep Ka-Re. What would be the difference between the status of a tribal member and a national member of the United Nuwaupian Nation? What tribes were to be found in Savannah? Actually, Savannah is a tribe. That's a good question, because they called the Savannans. That would be the Muskogee tribe. If you look up Savannah, you'll see that it was a tribe that existed on the East Coast. And I'll get to that, Kafus. But Imhotep is asking about the difference between the status of a tribal member. Great question. A tribal member of the United Nuwaupian Nation is related to us by tribe. We're one family by tribal blood, meaning that in the southeastern area you have, yes, it is. He said, wow. In the southeastern area, you had a list of tribes. If you look at most of the cities in Alabama, most of the cities in Georgia and Mississippi, you'll see they have different names like Tallapoosa, Talladega. You have Mobile. Even so far south as Miami. Now, the reason why I jumped from Alabama, Mississippi to Miami is because most of the major cities are named after tribes. Miami is a tribe. It's not just a city they pulled out the sky. It's a Native Americans, dark-skinned, woolly-haired Negroes, Negaru, that were called the Miamis. The Savannahs is a tribe. The rivers that are in Georgia were named after tribes: Oconee, Okmulgee. You have, if you name some rivers out in the Yazoo River out in Alabama, Mississippi, Alabama is a tribe. You had, like I said, Tallapoosa, Talladega, some cities list of cities in Alabama. And you'll see that most of them, and I know that's where the brother is that asked the question. And so you'll know why we're saying the tribe, because you have a list. Altoona is a tribe. That's a city in Alabama. And reason why I'm saying that is because it ties into your question. A tribal member. If from the southeastern area, most of our people come from the southeastern area. and we migrated to different places. And in that migration, some went west or Midwest, and some went east to the Northeast, East Coast, and then some went up into Ohio. But most of our people are from this southeastern area. And like I said, you have Altoona, you have other names like Chickasaw is a city, Cherokee is a town. You have the Clahatchee, that's a town in Alabama, Mississippi. You have Cusada, that's a Native American. These are tribes. These are not just names. These are where they found these people. And so most of us in the southeastern area are related by tribe. That's a tribal member. So a tribal member is someone that by default is called just sanguinis. It's a just sanguinis and just sanguinis and just soli. Just soli is soil. By soil, you are a tribal member because your family was born, the Cherokee tribe, your family was born in these areas. And then just sanguinis is that you're related to the wu-nuwaupu nation by blood. So if you are a tribal member by blood, you're related by default. You just were forced into an environment that made you accept contracts with names on there in order to do business. You follow what I'm saying? When you were pushed into these foreign states from your tribal families, from the Muskogee Nation, and you were forced to assimilate, you were forced into contracts. And what do I mean by contracts? The contracts that you were forced into was your birth certificate. You were forced to take an ID. You were forced to take Social Security. You were forced into these situations in order to live. And so these forced assimilations leaves those contracts, and we'll address that. Because a lot of people are saying, well, I have a U.S. citizenship, or I have an ID, or I have a birth certificate. Does that make me a U.S. citizen? Or does that make me up under their rule? And it doesn't. These are what you call adhesive contracts, and we'll address what those contracts are. But most of the tribal families were forced into these environments. And because of that, we were mixed in and was given religious doctrines and given these contracts. All your rights was taken by the state and put into a trust. And then they administered these so-called rights in the form of the state assisting you, like saying, well, we're going to give you Medicaid, and we're going to give you welfare, and we're going to assist you with whatever the state so-called is saying that they are giving you is already yours by natural birthright. It's just that because the system was set up, this system, the 13 states, the 13 original colonial settlers created this union of workers, of working states to control the indigenous, and the system was set up from London in 1666 from an act that was passed when the bubonic plague had took place. So, which we'll get into as well. But just to answer back to your question, so you are a tribal member by blood and by soil. Now, a national is someone that is not related by blood to our nation, is not related by soil because they were not maybe born in our Muskogee wu-nuwaupu nation territory. They may have been born in Holland or may have been born in London, but they may have migrated there, or they may not be Nagaru, because there are Nuwaupians that have joined that are, some are Tibetan, some are from different ethnicities, but so they became Nuwaupian nationals by what? By nationality, by accepting our president as who he is, a constitutionally seated chief of black tribes in the southeastern area, and they accepted the fact that he was over them and that he was the one that would to administer justice in a way that it was applicable to our safety. It was beneficial for our natural nature, our way of life. And they accepted him, and thus they became Nuwaupian nationals by acceptance. Just like if you were to become a U.S. a citizen of another country, and you say, well, I want to join this country. I've been here for 2 years. Therefore, I'm a Ghanaian national or a Congolese national. I've lived here 2 months or 2 years, whatever the criteria is, then you can become a national. Well, within our nation, you can become a national by a national member by accepting our president, accepting Dr. Malachi York as your chief. And so that's different from a tribal member. Now, tribal members are automatically nationals, but not accepted nationals are automatically tribal members because they're not necessarily related to us by blood. I'll say, can you expand on the people of the islands of Dominican and Trinity? So someone before then asked about just how Noble Drew Ali did in 1920s. So, okay, there's a lot of questions coming in, and I'll address them. Someone mentioned about Carolina. Again, North Carolina, South Carolina, is these lands were named after King Charles. King Charles in Latin became Carolus, and thus you got the charter that came from King Charles II. I think it's first. I'm not sure if it's first or second. Was given, and they came to this land and settled on this territory, which was, if you look at the Lumbee tribes up there, there's different tribes that existed. That existed in that southeastern area. Some of those tribes are the Katawa, the Yuchi is up there, and of course the Muskogee tribes, and the Yamasee, of course, was in South Carolina. So the Carolinas was named after a foreigner. It's not really their land. It's just a charter. A charter was issued by settlers because they petitioned the king, European king over there, and said, there's this new world we want to go to. There's this new place we want to settle, and it's beautiful. There's people there. There's Negrado there. There's Negroids. There's the Muskogee Nuwaupians are there, but Delaware is a tribe. Look it up. But they're called the Delawares. But we want to settle there and create our own state. This is how it started. And again, we revisited this. We may have mentioned it before, but they said that we want to establish our own condition, not state as in place, but our own conditions of living. A state is also a condition. It's not a place. Again, it's a condition of or existence. It's a state of euphoria. That is it's not on the map. You don't see euphoria on the map, but you do acknowledge that it is a state that people are in, or a state of mind that some people have been in, or a state of paranoia. So it's a condition that they created. These Europeans created conditions of theirs in this particular environment, and it was only 25 miles off of each coast. Look it up. Look at old colonial maps. You'll see that these conditions of Europeans only came 25 miles in off the coast. There was not the entire area of what you see now. That was our land, but they had their states. And so when you say North Carolina, South Carolina, when you say Virginia, all you're saying is that these particular settlers had a condition that was foreign to us. That's all it was. They had a foreign mind. The Georgians had a foreign mind. When we saw them, they were dirty, they were poor, they were thieves, they were cannibals, they were robbers, they had many diseases, and their condition of existence was totally different from Nuwapia. Our state of Nuwapia, we dealt with natural nature. We were animists. So in our minds, our condition was totally foreign. You had two foreign states. So now that's where they say, well, that's a foreign state. Foreign doesn't mean distant. A lot of people say, foreign thinks, people say a foreigner, they think that a foreigner means, they must have come from a distant land. But you can have a foreign object in your body. You can have a foreign object stuck in your throat, and it's right there. It's just foreign to your natural being. Therefore, it's not of you. So when a person says he is a foreigner, they're not talking about coming from another land. They're talking about something about the Haitian. Okay, they're talking about the fact that they were a foreign mind. Y'all, the spell is in the map. That's what we want to keep reiterating, that the spell of state, what a state is and what land is. People are mixing state and land as two different things. It's not the same. When you look at the map, you're not looking at the state. They made you think that the state is on the map. You're looking at the land that's on the map. And the state of mind of people that coexist in that area is the condition of the people. So if you got Georgia, Georgia is not the land. Georgia is the state of mind of the foreign rulers who settled there. They had the state of mind of George, a foreign king that we had no knowledge of. We didn't know who this king was. We didn't pledge allegiance to this king. We didn't have access to this king. This king never said anything to us. He didn't speak our language. He didn't have our culture. Therefore, we were foreign. They were foreign. And you can't mesh two foreign conditions. It's impossible. It's like taking an apple and an orange and making them one fruit. And you can't do that. This is why Nuwaupians have such a hard time of being forced into conditions of Europeans, forced into their mind. You cannot do that. And so to add it, so to understand how we got in this position is to understand how we are really a nation. If you don't know the background of our nation and how it developed, you won't know how we exist now. And this is why a lot of people are confused when they see state of Nuwapia. State of Nuwapia is not a place. It's obviously is not a place because you have Nuwaupians worldwide. So how are we in the state of Nuwapia and we're scattered? The reason why we're scattered is because the foreigners tried to make our land their very own conditions, their very own environment by creating colonial posts and colonial governments and foreign houses of judgment to bring indigenous people in to judge us by their laws. And so those that question of those charters from foreigners cannot be meshed into the condition of Nuwaupians. By natural nature, we are in a state of Nuwaup. We are in a state of reasoning. We are the reason why we're in a state of reasoning because that's the original thinking that you have. It's the core of your spirit. It's the core of your genetics. You know the reasoning took place in your womb when you had to go to the egg, and we discussed this before. No one taught you that. No one taught you how to get to the egg of your mother. No one taught you how to swim in darkness. No one taught you how to beat 777,776 other sperm cells. No one gave you directions to do that. That was in your genes to make it because you were in a certain state when you came into the womb. You were in a state of what? Reasoning. It reasons out, I have to go in a specific direction. You took everything you knew in your genetics and you manifested it, your being, by going to that egg and conceiving yourself and making sure that you made it on this side, and now we have to make sure that we make it to the other side. So the state of our existence continues. It's not a place. Nuwapia is a mind. Just like New Yorkers are in a New York state of mind. You can go anywhere, they still have a New York state of mind. You can hear the accent in Germany. A New Yorker could be in Germany and he'll still be in a New York state of mind because it's in existence. So Nuwaupians are complete. We are a state because we're connected psychologically. And this is what has to be driven home so you'll know how to separate yourself from them. Not because you're in a different place, or not because you don't think you're a nation because you're no longer on your land. That's the problem. You are in a state because psychologically we're all connected. This is why we all have a connection to the master teacher, because genetically, psychologically, that is our chief. And when we hear his voice, we are even people who act like they're not with Baba no more, who act like they're not Nuwaupians no more. Them niggas tune in and they still want to be connected. This is why they make all kinds of videos and try to put up stuff about us, because they know that they know that black devils. Some of them are just confused. Others don't really know, and they're being poisoned by outside people because they're not close. But the bottom line is that we're connected to our Father in a specific way, and it's genetic. This is why you can't separate yourself. This is why a person says, no matter what, they realize that Dr. Malachi York touched them because he touched the genes that was in them by either the voice or the words. That's why it's his genetic doctrine. His voice unlocks the genes that's in you. So when you say, I heard his voice. I don't know why. I just was like drawn to him, because it's the same way when, for instance, any national goes to a foreign place and they're like, say a Ghanaian is in Canada, and they're like, oh, wow, they hear a Ghanaian, they hear him talk, they're like, okay, they automatically commune in different environments. That's why you have Chinatown, and in every city it's a Chinatown. Every city there's a little Italy. Every city there is a you may have the Dutch or the Liberians that commune out here in Philadelphia, or you may have a certain group. They always convene. Why? Because nationhood is genetic. Nationhood is not about being on a map. Like everybody say, well, y'all don't niggas always on the, y'all don't have no land, y'all don't have this. You don't know what you're talking about. Because if you are psychologically, genetically connected, where you stand is your land. You follow what I'm saying? You may not be, it may not be indigenous. You may not be indigenous to it. And our indigenous land was inhabited, but we are still connected by state. And that's why there is a difference between the land and the state. They want to make you think that the United States, this is the spell. They want to make you think that the United States is a place. And it's not. It is not a place. The states, and when they drafted that Constitution in 1776, I think it was 78, around that time, they're drafting the Constitution, right? Actually, it was maybe a little later, because they had the convention that where these so-called intellectual Europeans got together. They never explored the rest of the lands, our lands, indigenous lands. So the United States could not have been, and under their definition, a place or land. It was the minds that were uniting. It was the conditions, 13 different conditions of being. They had Old Yorks, and then they had New Yorks. They had Old Jerseys, and look it up. Jersey is an island off of England. And then they said, so we're of the old Jersey. Let's go here and create a New Jersey. Who's over there? Native Americans, indigenous. Well, we'll create a little colony and just call it New Jersey. I mean, it's only 100 of us. Then it happened when they went down to Delaware. But they named Delaware. Delaware is the name of the Native Americans. It's just a certain group of Europeans settled there and said, the Delaware, we acknowledge you as Native Americans. We just want to set our little condition up over here. Or Virginia, Queen Victoria, can we go to this new world in your name? Can you protect us over there? They said sure, gave them a charter. Then they came over and set up on indigenous Muskogee nation. Up there's a few different tribes, but they settled on this land, and they had their own state or condition of mind, state of mind of this woman called Queen Virgin. So we didn't know this female. She was a foreign ruler. Thus, they had their own state or own condition, and all the way down to George. When they decided to unite those conditions they unified these conditions for one reason, was to control the land of the indigenous who already were in a state of wu-nuwaupu. And from there, the 13, they started adding additional indigenous nations to their union. How did they do that? After Georgia committed the biggest fraud in world history, you can look it up, called the Yazoo fraud. It's not something we're making up. 1796, they committed the massive fraud. We got everything here at the embassy, receipts, everything from when the fraud was committed, how it was committed, how they sold our land to private investors, Europeans, to settle on our territory in their documents. And Georgia and the United States knew they could no longer continue to colonize. Now the question I'm going to ask is, you got 13 colonies. Why didn't they continue colonizing? Why isn't Mississippi called the 14th colony? Alabama called the 14th colony. Mississippi called the 15th colony. Or, Kansas called the 16th colony. Because colonialism is illegal. They knew that it was illegal because they understood that subjugating indigenous people to foreign rule was something that was no longer accepted in the international community. So they could no longer colonize. So they had to name or leave the names of those indigenous places, the names of the people. That's why when you look at Illinois, look up the origin of Illinois. You will see it came named after a tribe, a nation. Look up the name Kansas. You will see it was named after a nation. Look up the name Oklahoma. It was called the land of the red faces. It was named after Native Americans. And then if it wasn't named after Native American, it was named after the land in which the description of the land. Michigan, Native Americans. Wisconsin, Native American. Illinois, Native American term. Indiana, Indian. Okay. Texas, it's reference to the Native Americans in Mexico. Arizona, Native American. Utah, the Utes, Native American. Even California, which is named after a black princess. A lot of people don't know that. Look up Caliph from the word Caliph. Caliph, California. Khalifa, which is feminine. It was named after a princess because those dark-skinned original travelers who came from the West sailed here and settled in that land and they called it in commemoration of this female. They named it Caliphate or Cali or state of Caliph or state of California. And so they stopped colonizing because it became illegal. And that's why the 13 colonies are just named after foreigners. The rest of the states, you don't see an IA at the end of their name. You see an IA at the end of Virginia. You see an IA at Georgia. You see that. They never considered you a part of their We the People. They didn't consider you a part of the We the People. And this is important to know. This is the reason why we have our own constitution, is because Tejas, okay? Native American, right? Texas Tejas. And so someone just put in Hutep Sin Sabuk Tawad. And so this is the reason why, they had to create their government on the indigenous territory. Why? Because to create what they call a world power. Why is the United States considered the only world power? People don't even know. They say the United States is a world power. They don't know. They think it's from the military. They think it's because of their economic influence. It's not. It's because they're the only nation, corporation that was able to incorporate indigenous territories into their union to control the people. And they issued out sovereignty through second types of governments called state governments. That's why you have two governments going hand in hand. One is state sovereignty, the other is federal so-called sovereignty. So how does two governments rule the people? And we the people are not the people in reference in the Constitution. We talked about this before in reference to the preamble, is not the people of wu-nuwaupu. We the people is the people of the United States. The people of wu-nuwaupu were on the land in which we were subjugated to these foreign states' rule. And how did they implement it? Well, I have my 1818 book here, Mitochondria, but it was done through the Pleiadians. It was done through George Washington and his connection to what? Extraterrestrials. That's laid out. When you talk about the extraterrestrial involvement and the reptilian involvement, being in cahoots with George Washington, because they gave George Washington the layout of what this new land under Enlil would look like and how it would be controlled, how it would be, how they would set it up to create this new breed, this new American Negro, or this black man in the image and after the likeness of this Mukasu. So they could put the mark in the hand and in the head. And they needed that breeding because they needed this being for blood and other his spiritual his spiritual magical powers that we had. They would suck up all of our energy in these religious environments. And in these religious environments, these churches and the mosque and these Hebrew so-called synagogues and even temples, right? They would take our spiritual powers and have us worshiping their gods, which would give them power to rule over us. And so because of that, it gave the European Masonic orders the power to do what? Create jurisdictions. This is why in every state, I'm just showing you how the layout was done, because it had to be done methodically. It had to be done in a way where it was mapped out. That's why the United States, looking from on a map, if you look at the map of the United States from above, you got me? When you look at it from above, you'll see that it's what? You look at it from above, you'll see that it's squared off. Every state starts on a 45-degree angle from the East Coast to the West Coast. The original 13 colonies, you don't really see it squared off too tough. You don't see like an immediate 45-degree angle. But as this manifest destiny took place, you can see how each state was squared off. How did they do that? Because the map of the United States was given to George Washington from above. So when you look down from a craft or look down from the heavens, when you look on a map, you can see the layout of the U.S. And it was done with each nation. They had to say, we're going to take this land. How did they take this land? They used the European Masonic orders. And if you go to the capital of each state, I don't care where it is, look at the capital. You will see that right across from that capital, you'll see a Masonic building. Because they went from the lodge to the government. They went from one jurisdiction to create another jurisdiction. And in creating these jurisdictions, they created jurisdiction over the land and thus jurisdiction over the people. And thus they were able to operate operatively and speculatively. And this is why when you look at, you go to any city, most of the Masonic buildings are the most beautiful buildings in the city. Because this is how they carried out their Palladian plan to control this land for Enlil, who is now working with Trump. This is why when you talk about Donald Trump, you're talking about their Antichrist taking a seat in the celebration of the Jubilee, which is 50 years, right? From 1967 up until now, you'll see that they celebrating the fact that they was able to get their Antichrist in office to usher in their Messiah, to usher in Nanar, who had left last year, who visited last year, and told them that because the United States lost their extension, it was shifted to Russia, and with that, Russia as Putin and the United States is working closely together because the 7 heads and 10 horns is rising up, and this is the prophecy on the front of the book, Leviathan 666. This is what the master teacher, and Donald Trump just recently, the master just confirmed that this is the picture of a young Trump. At the time, when our master overstood who these faces are, Donald Trump was young. He was a young man at the time. So you don't see an old Trump as his presidency on this Leviathan. This picture is from the 70s. So when you look at the picture, you're going to see, you look at the time in which Donald Trump in the 70s, look at 1970, go look it up, Google a picture of Donald Trump in 70, and you put him next to this picture on Leviathan, you'll see that they're the same face. That's not an old Trump, it was just prophecy being fulfilled. And with that being said, everything is unfolding right now. And this is why we are in a very, very crucial time where we must stay unified. We must stay on the same page so that when they do come for their food, You will not be in a position where you're worshiping their lords. You're not under the radar of their gods. You haven't made any sacrifices. You're not eating blood, flesh, and meat. Because that blood, flesh, and meat, if you look at someone actually show the Leviathan, that's perfect. The Leviathan cover, you'll see that is the Donald Trump. Look at a picture when he was on Oprah, and you'll see it's the same. Even with the hair, you can see the hair, that little wave in the front that he always has. And it wasn't until he was elected in office that it came to pass that the master teacher, Dr. Malachi York, has been teaching us this for years. And so it is not a coincidence on why he's arrested and why he was put in prison and why he's being abused, because they know that his freedom is the freedom. It's all extraterrestrial involvement right now. And once you begin to know that the gods that you worship, this is why the gods that you worship doesn't give you any help. He always implores pain. The more you worship him, the more bloodshed. The more you worship him, the more disease. The more you worship him, the more chaos. The more you worship him, the more wars and rumors of wars. The more control, because you're giving power to these Leviathan, the beings who created this law to keep you in fit form, and thus you think you're enslaved because they created the law, and that law is in Leviticus. And then when you read Leviticus, these Levitical priests were responsible for the killing and the sacrifices to these gods. And this is what must take. This is how they stay in power, to keep their beings satisfied, because they say we have to sacrifice. This is what this whole either fitter Muslims, they go to the top of a mountain and cut goats' throats and throw them off a cliff. You follow what I'm saying? They have these in church. They say, come sacrifice yourself to the Lord. They say, come down to the altar. All of this is symbolic of sacrificing. Where do you kill animals at? On an altar. Why do you come to an altar in church? Why do they say come down and sacrifice yourself, bow your head? This is all symbolic of you giving your soul, giving your spirit, and giving your body to these beings. So they say, let us pray over you. Not P-R-A-Y, but P-R-E-Y. Because these beings are praying over the blood that you drink on the first Sunday of communion in church. But Christians are so afraid to practice the original ceremony that they say, well, we're not really going to eat the flesh. We're just going to give you some crackers. Or we're going to give you just a little wine. It's, play blood. Follow what I'm saying? Because they don't want you to know that whole religious doctrine is that whole worship of these gods. That's why Hebrew Israelites are not getting any help. Because they don't even know that their God is sacrificing them. And they think they're going to get help by worshiping a being who they have no connection to that being. And so then all of these if you look at all of these religious practices, these rituals, they stem from you sacrificing yourself to the Lord. Abraham had to sacrifice his son Isaac or Ishaq. Cain and Abel had to sacrifice or make a sacrifice to their Lord and to show that he was what? That he was worthy to be in their order. Because you had to show loyalty to Enlil and his descendants in order for you not to be eaten. You had to give them a certain amount of flesh and blood. That's why when they showed up, the first thing Abraham went to go do, he said, Sarah, go to the herd and get it flesh and blood. It says a calf in Genesis 18. It says he dressed a calf, and it doesn't even say he cooked it. It says he presented it to this Lord. He dressed it, hastened quickly, and brought flesh and blood. How did he know that these beings, go to Genesis 18 for those that don't believe it, you can look it up yourself. How did Abraham know that these beings, because it was a Lord there, and he had two other friends, two other beings, and he knew that first thing that they wanted was some flesh and blood. How did he know that? How did he know that I'm going to cut this up, make sure it's a calf, and I'm going to tell you something that's real eerie. And you can look up your Strong's Concordance. And don't believe nothing I'm saying. The Hebrews, if you're on the phone, look it up right now if you have a Strong's Concordance. The word calf in Genesis 18. Look up. Let me get my Bible. Bible. Okay. I don't have it on me. I don't know where it is out of all books, but I'll look it up real quick. Genesis 18, right? And we'll read it real quick, and you'll see you'll see that this Genesis 18, when you read it, this talks about these three visitors, right? But the key word that you have to understand is that when in Genesis 18:7, it says, then he ran to the herd and selected a choice of a tender calf. That word calf there does not mean animal. If you read it, you'll see that the word calf means boy. Don't believe me? Check it out. And it says he gave it to the servant who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds. Now these lords, and we can go back to the very first verse. And the Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre. This is not the. Let me look at the King James version. Right. It says, and the Lord appeared to him. Oh, this is King James version, New King James version. Let me get they have so many different versions, so to confuse you, so you would not even know where what it actually is saying. 21st King James version, is that it? Okay, yes. And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre. And he sat at the tent in the door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes, and lo and behold, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground and said, my Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet. This Lord has feet now. And rest yourselves under a tree. So he's affected by shade, by the sun. He had to hide up under a tree to protect him from the sun that he so-called had created. Right? This is all in the first verse. Now this Lord is under a tree. His feet is dirty and he's tired. And Abraham knows that he's hungry because verse 5 says, and I will fetch a morsel of bread and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on. And Abraham, verse 7, Abraham hastened to the tent unto Sarah and said, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal needed, and make cakes upon the earth. Okay. And Abraham ran and fetched the calf, a herd, and fetched the calf tender and good. So what I'm saying is that Abraham knew that these beings wanted some flesh and blood. Now, how he knew that is, I don't know. But obviously, he knew that these beings, this is what they tasted. This is what they wanted. Because he didn't say, what would you like to eat? Would you like a salad? No, he didn't say that. Why didn't he say, would you like a salad? I'm not sure. But according to Genesis, if you go to Cain and Abel in that story, that for what it's worth, let me plug my phone in. For what it's worth, you'll see that, guess what? Cain's offering was accepted and Abraham's wasn't. Abel's wasn't. Why wasn't Abel's sacrifice? Why wasn't Cain's sacrifice accepted? Because it was just a salad. That's all it was. It wasn't enough flesh and blood. This being loved meat. He loved the smell of burnt flesh on an altar, and which is one of the reasons, if you go down to Genesis as well, go back to Genesis 8, if I'm not mistaken, you'll see that Noah gave this beings, he said that, put all of your first flock on the altar, and he burnt it, cooked it, and it pleased the scent, it pleased the nose of this being. This being was appreciative of this flesh burning. He was appreciative of this sacrifice. And he said, because of that, I'm not going to kill y'all anymore. Because why? You're sacrificing things to me, and you're creating a pact. This is what the religious community doesn't know. The religious community doesn't know that they made pacts with these beings. And if you don't continuously feed them, and you find it throughout history, you find out that, hey, you go throughout South America and, you see these long staircases where these beings are saying, these beings are saying, you walk up and they say, give us a virgin. Why did they want the virgin? Why did these ancient tribes and beings, when these beings appeared, they knew they had to sacrifice a virgin? Why? Because the virgin, just like human beings, like veal, which was the tender part of an animal. So when you look at it from an extraterrestrial standpoint, right? The being is, when you look at it from an extraterrestrial standpoint, you're looking at beings who come to this planet and they say, well, all right, well, let me get the best of flesh. I don't want any tank. I don't want any meat that's been, I don't want any chicken that's been poisoned. I don't want any chicken that has alcohol or any drugs, or some of them, they like their meat fermented. So they do abduct people who have drinking habits. They do that and use because they call them pickled, and some extraterrestrials like pickled humans. And they like smoked humans too. The same way human beings do the same thing when they go to a market or, a slaughterhouse. They say, give me a smoked turkey. Everyone doesn't like smoked turkey. Well, how's it smoked? You put it in smoke, let it sit for a few hours. Well, human beings do the same thing when they smoke cigarettes, smoke marijuana, smoke cigars, or what have you, right? Those beings come and they choose beings who have been smoked. Or they abduct the babies from the womb of the mother. But humans have this such a, big, why do they do that? Well, you do it to eggs every morning. Most people go out and take a chicken's egg, which is someone's baby, and crack it open. They have no emotional connection. They don't care. So all the religious people like, oh, my God wouldn't do that. Yes, because you do it. You do the same thing. You go take a baby from an animal that you have no connection to, crack it open, put it in the frying pan, and put it on a piece of bread. And now you got a sandwich and you call it breakfast. You're breaking your fast with someone's baby. Well, extraterrestrials do, and they look at you the same way, and you don't even know it because you're caught up in this whole religious dogma of, Jesus loves us, or the Lord wants us to come home. The Lord is my shepherd. A shepherd is a being. A shepherd is a being that leads his animal to slaughter. You follow that? When you are a shepherd tricks. If you're saying the Lord is your shepherd, the shepherd tricks his flock. That's what he does. He makes his flock think that they're being fattened up and juice and given juice and great nutrition. They feed them the best of food. They feed, pigs. Come get your slop. All animals love the shepherd. They do. They come out. The shepherd comes out. All the animals run to him. Yes, my Lord. You're the landlord you feed us. You give us everything that we need. This is the Mukasu doing the Nagaru here in this country. You give us everything we need. You are our Lord. And they don't know that Lord, when it's time for you to be slaughtered, he's going to offer you up. Why? Because he fattened you up for that. You were tricked into doing that. So all these religious people, the Hebrew Israelites, the Moors, Seventh-day Adventists, Christians, whoever you are the beings who they are preparing to offer up in a rapture. Rapture or raptors. Raptor is a reptilian. These winged creatures that you call cherubim in your Bible, that these certain beings rode and carried up and took them up into the sky. You see it all throughout Genesis, throughout Ezekiel, throughout Daniel. They speak about cherubims being at the gates of the garden, having wings and flames of swords that will turn, if you turn away, you would have you fleeing. Even in the Quran, it speaks about seeing these beings and you will run in fright. Because these are those reptilian overlords that you have made to think is all good, because you like to think that your God loves you and you've been tricked. And so if you're not prepared to separate yourself from this system that was designed to offer you up, then so what? So be it. You just food for the gods. Do we have, the salvation is here. Our president, our chief, Dr. Malachi York is here and in flesh, and you have these last few opportunities. You got days left to get on the right path. And I'm not saying that to try to sound scary or try to make nobody, I'm not asking, I'm not passing out no plate. I'm not asking for no money. We're not asking, that's not what we do. The facts are the facts, and people are not aware. They're looking around thinking, you got a lot of time, and we don't have a lot of time. We have to get our behinds out of here before it comes crashing down, before they locked down the food, before they locked down the water. You know, they did a test run a few years ago, right? You got any questions, just please ask questions. So, you know, so we can get some clarity on anything that I'm saying, because I'm talking, but I want to make sure that if anything I'm jumping over, the people be able to really be clear on what I'm saying for quotes and things of that nature, because we do have quotes for those that want to look these quotes up in their books that speaks about these sacrifices and how this Lord, even in Leviticus 4, you follow what I'm saying? You go to Leviticus 4. Let's go to Leviticus real quick. I just want you to read how you know, these beings, they ask you to sacrifice things such as let me look it up real quick. This is Resolve Study Bibles, Genesis, not Genesis. Let's go back. Okay. We're going to Leviticus 4. Does any pull up Leviticus 4? Just a quick quote so you can see the type of blood sacrifices that these beings decide. You know, they say, present to us a calf, present to us a bullock, so we can cut its throat for the sins of the people, right? You know, okay, some people the Bible is full of lies, but it's not for us. It's for them. So the Bible does have facts in it. It does have truth in it. Don't get it wrong. It does. But the lords that are introduced there is not the ones that you should, Alicia, this is for Alicia Banks. The lords that are in there is not the ones that's for you. The lords that are in there is for overlords of the Mukasu, overlords of the of religious people who have adopted that doctrine and has accepted that doctrine from the Caucasian and accepted that doctrine from the superiority images of their gods to make you give all your spiritual powers to him. And so we're trying to say that in this because we kind of veered off from the layout of this country and the 54 not 54, but the layout of the states, the 50 states of the United States, how it was laid out by extraterrestrials, by Pleiadians, by beings that wanted to manifest their destiny and create this garden that will not let you out. This is why you can't get out of here. This is why you need a passport to go to a place. You need permission to leave. Even though they say, well, I am a resident, I am so-called U.S. citizen. Why do I need to ask you to make a pass to go somewhere to come back if we are free? The Anunnaki, exactly. I'm referring to the Anunnaki when we reference to those beings. They have many different names. We call them extraterrestrials, but they are classified by different titles depending on where they come from, whether it's through the Draconian star constellation, whether it's through Zeta Reticuli, where another group of beings come from. When they come down to this planet and they manifest here physically, they shapeshift and they look for sacrifices from human beings. And another reason which we wanted to point out about these Genesis stories, these beings, and the reason why they introduce rituals like the circumcision and introduce rituals where the female must cut themselves off from blood when they so-called unclean and they had to go into hiding, is because these beings smell blood. And these beings, when you circumcise a male, it was to remove the foreskin, because human beings wasn't what? They weren't mixing fast enough or breeding fast enough so they can create food for the gods. And when you remove the foreskin off of a male, you remove the sensitivity. I mean, you expose the head of the penis to the sensitivity of the head of the penis, which cause a male to ejaculate faster, which cause children to be born quicker. All of this is in there. Now, we can go real deep into the food of the gods conversation, but we don't want to. I don't want to get so far into that. Because we were kind of like in one direction, but the doctrine intertwined, so we're able to go through, we're able to go from east or west, north or south, it doesn't matter, but tied it into this land and why it's considered a superpower, because the beings who gave these Europeans the power were extraterrestrials, Anunnaki, Malachi, those overlords that made them forcibly sacrifice human beings for their consumption. And this is why they go killing sprees in wars, They go into killing sprees and they leave the bodies out in the fields. So if they kill, like in Afghanistan, they have Iraq, different places, the reptilian shapeshifters can come out and eat the bodies later. And this is why you found out these late articles, information and stories about soldiers coming back to their parents and their parents looking in the tomb or looking in the casket and they're no longer there. They thought they thought were no longer, they were never put in there because the bodies were being used and eaten by these beings. And this is what they had kill groups that was taking place. And so I'm saying that all of that ties into now. All of that, and so how does all of that affect wu-nuwaupians? It affects wu-nuwaupians because it's about to unleash, and this is what they're preparing for. They have to inform the world. Once the human beings find out that they're alien, that these extraterrestrials now are their religious gods, the world is going to go berserk. They're going to go bananas when they find these things out. And we have to stay connected because they're looking for us to become untouched. They're looking for us to be apart from each other. They're looking for us to not be able to unify. And this is important. What the master teacher's job, one of his jobs, is coming here to unify us through language, to make sure that we're on we speak all the same language, because when we spoke the same language, we were able to build great edifices. We were able to complete great tasks and great missions. It was Enlil who caused the confusion and caused the Babylonian tongues to be separated, which caused the these different tongues of Babel, Sumeria, Mesopotamia. If you read this story in Genesis again, where it speaks about Nimrod and coming from a certain land, right, from Cush, coming as Afafre Kau, going into Ethiopia, going into Mesopotamia, and thus them Enlil and Enki seeing Enlil specifically seeing that we were united by tongue and united by mind, because uniting by tongue unites you by mind. If you unite by mind, you begin to think alike. You begin to create the same image, and thus you create hologramic projection from, because everyone is thinking alike. Thus you can create and manifest anything physically that you need. And so they have to introduce confusion amongst our nation, amongst our tribe, to say, they're confused, they're in the clans, they're working together, they're doing this, they're doing that. I don't know who's wu-nuwaupians over here, it's wu-nuwaupu's over here, it's wu-nuwaupians over there. It's all kinds of names and distractions because they're banking on us not being together. And so I just needed to get that out to y'all so we understand the layout and how it ties into our doctrine, and how the United States, this layout and us separating ourselves by mentally will keep us safe, keep us at peace, keep us together, keep us under one unified mind, and we will be protected by our ancestors. So I'll take a quick. The foreskins of the male is the most fertile source of stem cell. This is why they circumcise for sin. This is why they do that for circumcising men, but they didn't know that then. We're talking about that's just a recent technological breakthrough where they find out stem cells, do these things. But the actual circumcision was actually not even cutting off the foreskin. It was the cutting of the cord which allowed the foreskin to fall back. It was never removed. They started doing that later in Jewish traditions because their overlords wanted more food, and so it caused their children under that covenant to breed more, because without a foreskin, you'd ejaculate very quick, which would cause a female to be even more frustrated, and she would have a child after child, and more food for these gods. And it's backed up in this in the book, because I know a lot of people may see this later and be questioning where the quotes at, things of that nature, but we do have the quotes. But I'm reluctant to go into it because it can draw out the class, and I think that we wanted to stay on a specific topic about nationality and the United Nuwaupian Nation, and why we are who we are, and why our ancestors grew us into what we are now, so we can be protected in this day and time. So if you got any questions, shoot. It's a question that came in. Question: Black African Americans are property of the U.S. So how do we acquire our documents to correct our status? Okay, that's a good question. You're not really, okay, the contracts that you have with the U.S., right? These are contracts. These are contracts that you have with the United States. I'm just trying to find a good position for my phone. Oh, sorry. Okay. Or maybe not. Let me just hold it. I'll do that. Okay. The contracts you have, such as your birth certificate, because that's what you're asking, property, right? And if you're claiming yourself, if you're looking at yourself as property, you have to look at what caused you to become the property of this corporate fiction. When you were born, right, into whatever land you were born in, let's just say to you, I meant state, right? When you were born here, you were given a birth certificate, right? This birth certificate can be used 3 ways, 2 ways actually. It's used in the birth of a ship. And we discussed this, I think, with a few of the embassy staff a few days ago. There's a birth certificate issued to ships. Look it up. It's maritime law. And this will get into, certain things that, laws that are, the Embassy of the United Wu-nuwaupu Nation is responsible for and overstanding in regards to our people. And this is a good question, Earl Nixon, because our job is to assist and making sure that our nationals are protected. And in protection, you have to know what binds you to the U.S. The binding contract is something that takes place when you're born. It's not something you chose. Okay? So remember, you didn't choose to become property. Your parents were tricked into becoming property. And the reason why they were tricked, because 1837, the Births, Deaths, and Marriages Act was formed in the UK. And the post of Registrar General was established. And so his job was to collect all data from individuals who were born, or their record of birth. And so when you're born, that contract of birth is taken possession of by the clerk of court, which is their court system. And this is why your original birth certificate is filed in the clerk of court. And when it's filed in the clerk of court, they take possession of it, and you're given a capital title, because you're not considered alive, right? The reason you're not considered alive is because of something that is called the Sesqui Act of 1666. Because this system was laid out under British rule and British mandate, when you were not you here, but in London during the Black Plague. Follow that? During the Black Plague, the entire European countries were considered dead. They were dead people. So what happens if, you wake up tomorrow, the state exists, the government is in existence, and the people are dying all around you? Look it up. The people are dying all around you. I'm gonna get to the question, what do we do about this? I think you just we're gonna get to what can we do about it, and that's accepting your nationality and realizing that you are not property of the system. They took possession of your person by birth certificate. They took possession of your soul through a baptism, which your baptism can also be used. That's why they say, baptism can be used as a proof of identification, because some people showed that, took you to a church, you were baptized, your footprint was put on was put on a certificate, and they said, we claim the soul, all caps, right? All your capital name is on the birth certificate, it's on the death certificate, and it's also in court records, because they cannot do business with flesh and blood. So in order to do business with you and your being and your body as a flesh and blood human being, soul, Nagardo, original flesh and blood deity, in order for this corporate fiction, these foreign conditions to do business with you and take possession of your property, they had to take possession of your dead body. because you were not considered alive until you were able to come claim your rights or come claim who you are. The problem is, the reason why you cannot claim who you are because you don't know who you are. So you never could go forth in the international community or go forth to the courts or go forth to the, to the clerk of court and says, I'm not this name that you have on this birth certificate. This is a business name. This is what you have to understand. Your identification, this is what I was trying to tell these ridiculous people who keep trying to use a name that I used in business, right? Or a name you use in business. They call it so-called your government name. The reason you're saying, when you say government name, you're saying the government owns the name. So what about the name you own? The name you own is the name you take as a wu-nuwaupian. When you realize who you are, you say, this is my nationality. This is the name that I'm giving myself. The name that's on your birth certificate, you didn't give yourself. Your parents were tricked into giving the name. And your parents were tricked into laying it out on a birth certificate in order to do business with this corporate fiction. They did not know. And so therefore, when the state itself has, according in their laws, they've taken possession of everything, including the person that they claim on doing business with, so they can borrow against your person on the monetary stock market. When they borrow against your person, what they do is they borrow 70 years of your work, meaning that if you work for the system, right, then and you're paying taxes, right, that tax add up at a certain amount of time. And based on the amount of years you work for the system, the amount of years you pay taxes, they can borrow money against that projected amount of money that you pay taxes for. So when you say, I've been working for the system for 30, 40 years, I pay taxes, they borrow money against that in the day you were born. That's why your birth certificate is traded on the stock market. You follow? So when your birth certificate is traded on the stock market, that if the United States or any nation says, well, I have 70 million or 400, let's say 100 million Nagaru that was, in my country or born that I took possession over. They went into contract with us because we own the name, and they can't do business without us, without coming towards us, and they're going to work for us and pay taxes. This is the amount of taxes that they're going to pay. Therefore, I can borrow. This country can borrow, this corporate fiction in the U.S. can borrow money based on the amount of taxes that you're going to pay back over a period of time, because basically they're saying you're going to pay it back, and based on your labor. And so what you have to do is acknowledge that the name that's on the birth certificate, the name that's on that ID, is a corporate fiction name in order to do business. Otherwise, you would not be able to survive. Otherwise, you would not be able to buy food if you didn't have this contract. So they forced you to assimilate. And in forcing you to assimilate, they made you a product of theirs. So these contracts are illegal. That birth certificate is illegal. The identification card is illegal because it's not a beneficial contract, meaning you don't know. You didn't know what the contract reads. You don't know what that birth certificate really entails. You don't know what that identification really entails. You don't know what contract you're going into. You're forced to do it because you won't be able to drive. You won't be able to put lights on in your house if you don't show who you are according to their system. So they forced you into these contracts. In international law, these contracts are null and void. Why are they null and void? Because the reason they're null and void is because they're called adhesive contracts. Look it up. An adhesive contract is a one-sided contract that places you on, regardless of what you are forced to sign, even if it's against your own will, because you won't be able to survive. And so this is why you can, in the wu-nuwaupian nation, once you acknowledge your nationality and acknowledge that you are a wu-nuwaupian by blood and by soil, and the identification card that you're using is specifically for business. It's a business contract forced upon you between the state in which you belong to, or the state in which you're doing business with, and your personal your personal, basically your survival wage. You got to survive where you are. And so these contracts are really one-sided, because if you don't have it, you won't eat. If you don't have it, you won't be able to go to school. If you don't have it, you won't be able to, buy groceries, or you won't be able to buy a house. Everything is based on credit. So this is how they tricked you. So you're not really property. You have to acknowledge that these contracts are just used to do business. When a person says, are you such and such? Are you Damon Pryor? No, that's a business contract that you forced on me in order for me to do business in this country. This person says, are you Michael Smith? No, I'm doing business as Michael Smith. I'm doing business as, this person. And so these contracts were forced upon you. So you're not really property. So, by claiming, your nationality under the wu-nuwaupu nation, signing a ledger, acknowledging that you are indeed one of us, then that puts you up under a flesh and blood nation that's indigenous to territory that belongs to us. I hope I answered your question. Any other questions? A money contract, another reason why so many people are in the prison system. Exactly. Any other questions? And I know a lot of the Moors have done, did things that way, but the Moors were supposed to come up under the wu-nuwaupu nation. So and the reason why I'm saying that, I appreciate you chiming in, DBA Omar. I appreciate you chiming in. The reason why that's important is because we have to we respect the consciousness of our people and the direction that they move in and what they could grab at the time of the awakening. A lot of our people is like, I want to separate ourselves. I want to become independent. I want to become sovereign. I just want to get out the system. And we understand the frustration, but there is a method in how it's done. There's a method that, you can't just by yourself say that you're sovereign, because that would leave you stateless. And if you're stateless, you don't have a person to come claim you. You don't have a government to acknowledge. And so this is why they try to create what you call a sovereign, these sovereign citizens, to make you think that you are a sovereign citizen when we are not sovereign citizens. A sovereign citizen is what they call a oxymoron, because you can't be sovereign and be a citizen, because a sovereign is not a citizen. A sovereign is a government, right? As a sovereign government, you're a group of beings who retain sovereignty, and you have links to a specific land. You have links to a specific culture. You have links to a specific place. And the reason the Moors are getting into issues, problems, is because there is no direct land. And I know they say all of, the whole maxim, the whole, the build of all the land is ours. That's cool, but it's not accepted in the international community. You can't go to the international community and say, you're a nation? You say, yeah. Where's your land? All over. It doesn't work. Every nation has a specific place that they can point to. That's why they say, where's your land, Ghana? We were here. Where's your land, Liberia? Right here. Where's your land, Cameroonians? Here we are. Where's your land, Senegalese? Oh, we're over here. They're indigenous. We're the tribes. Oh, the tribes are still here. Can you make a connection? The Senegalese tribes? They say we were here since such and such time. Follow what I'm saying? So the point is, the Moors are having problems is because they want to be recognized as a sovereign nation, and they're making people think that they're part of a nationality, but you have to be able to identify the nation where you originated from. And Moor, the word Moor has its origin in the Greek. It's a Greek word. Right? It has its origin in the Greek language. And also, it has its origin in, Spain has a word for more. The French have a word for more. The Dutch have a word for more. The French, Latin, even, most Greek writers have acknowledged that, more was really a description of a race. So when you say you are a Moor and you are a nation, it's too general for the international community to say or identify the place in which you originated, because there's Moors all over Africa. There's Moors all over, the U.S. There's Moors in South America. So they can't acknowledge Moors as a nation because where would you put the land itself? How could they make territory for all the Moors when you haven't been able to pinpoint exactly where you come from? And this is the confusion. This is why Dr. Malachi York has established indigenous territory where the international community can say, are y'all a nation? Yes. Where y'all land? Right here. Right here in this area that they named George after the settlers. They say, oh, okay, so you were here first. Yes, we were here first. Okay, so it's like, wow, okay. So this is your land, this is your people, this is your culture, this is your language. You ask the Moors the same question. What is your language? They say Arabic. You can't use it. Arabic is spoken in multiple countries. So it's not an indigenous tongue. It's not something that the Moors can pinpoint to say, we spoke Arabic on this land. Because Arabic is different types of Arabic. There is no national language of the Moors. They say Arabic, but they don't speak Arabic fluently. And the Arabic language that is really Turkish. It's a Turkish form of Arabic, because the Sultan in which led or so-called that the Moors have adopted is a Turkish title. So it would be confusing to the international community, especially international lawyers and jurists that understand what nationality is and identify nationality, is that when you say you speak Arabic as a Moor, then they're gonna have to, what type of dialect? There's several dialects of Arabic. And because there's several dialects, you have the Farsi script, you have the Quraysh, you have the Urdu, you have Pakistani, you have the Moroccan script, you have the Berber script, you have the Ottoman tongue. You have these different scripts of Arabic that the Moors have not been able to identify as their national indigenous tongue. And so this is why the Moors have been confusing, not intentionally, maybe intentionally, I don't know. But it's not applicable to all our brothers because some of them don't know. But when you get into the international community and you sit in front of and they say, well, there's some new nations that are claiming nationhood, and the Moors raise their hand and they say, you can't say the language. There's no language to identify. Even there's no government to say who's your government. There is no government. You convene in temples. And that's not government halls. That's not a city hall. That's not, and so it's confusing to people. And this is why the Moors have had such a hard time. And so to answer the question, a sovereign citizen, you can't be, in order to be a citizen, you have to be a citizen of a nation. And that nation has to be sovereign as a whole and accepted and acknowledged as a sovereign as a whole. You sit up under a particular language. It's a particular king or ruler and not a sultan. Because if you say sultan, like Moors say they have sultans, and that's Turkish. And if you have to identify with Turkey, and then identify with Turkey, you have to fall up under the Turkish government. Or if you say, well, we're from Morocco, then you would have to identify with Moroccan government. And the Moroccan government is the one that does treaties with the U.S., not just plain citizens of people who standing up. So that's the confusion. So we really have to kind of like tie in everything. And the master teacher tied it in by writing the Circle 7 book of Quran, the Circle 7, so the Moors can, we all can be one. We all could unify. We all would be under one accord, and we won't look so confusing. This is why the international community looks at us and they're like, what are y'all doing? Why haven't y'all got it together? Why haven't y'all had y'all independence? Why haven't you been able to organize in such a fashion where we can assist you over there? The international community knows you've been abused. They know you've been raped. They know you've been robbed. They know the things you've been stolen. They know everything. They know that what happened to us. It's just, are we intelligent enough to realize we have to come together as a real nation, not play. Niggas are playing. The Nation of Islam, they're playing with the people. You can't have a nation of a religion. It doesn't work that way. How are you going to have a nation of Islam and then have a minister over it? You know, it doesn't work that way. You can't have a nation of Islam. It doesn't exist. And so when they see that, it's no threat. That's why the Nation of Islam, Farrakhan is still roaming and doing what he does, because he's not a threat. Because the international community knows that he's not really a nation, that he was an offshoot of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And with that being said, they know he's a minister instead of a president. They know he doesn't have a government. He has soldiers, the fruit of Islam. That's not a legitimate nation. They don't look at it. They don't have a language, because they speak broken tongue of Arabic that Master Fard Muhammad did not speak. He did not understand Arabic because he was an implant from Britain. His parents was Britain. His father was from another country. So he was a mixed mukasu, and he didn't speak the Arabic tongue. He said, "Assalamu." He learned certain Arabic phrases, which the Nation of Islam picked up, and they picked it up. And that's why they don't pray the same as Sunni Muslims, is because their Lord, their God, was not a Sunni Muslim. He wasn't a Shiite Muslim. He had a distorted version, a watered down version, and a compilation of all this. They stand in prayer with their hands towards the sky. They don't go into ruku and sajda, etc. So they're not looked upon as a real nation. They don't have a language, and thus they're no threat. So that's why Farrakhan, people, he can say what he wants, and they don't bother him. Well, they came after Dr. Malachi York because they knew the direction he was going in. That was the thing. They understood that he was able to carry out, he was able to unify our people in such a level unseen by anyone on the planet. They never seen anyone to organize Africans and indigenous people in America the way he did. And they knew the direction we was going. They knew we was going in, by now, imagine what Tamaray would have been after 24 years. We'd have been the most successful nation built, speaking our language, on our land, with our children, our elders, our economic institutions, our schools, our businesses, our temples, our universities, our police force, our medical teams, our hospitals. Everything would have been there. And guess what? When Trump hit in office, we would have been in position. But they stopped us, and black devils assisted them, and they're still doing it by coming out against us, not knowing what we represented, not knowing that we were salvation to our people. And they did not understand the leadership and the mind that our president, our master teacher, Dr. Malachi York, they didn't understand it. And so this, because of their ignorance, they caused their own downfall. They caused their own people to now we're at the mercy of the devil, because black Negroes who think they have the answer, who think they know their way out, who think they can free us, and they can't even free themselves of the bills that they get every month. They can't free themselves of the tuition that they owe for their school. They can't free themselves of, basic everyday rat race here. They can't free themselves of their own body aches or their own diseases of their mind. They can't free themselves in no kind of way, but yet they have the answer to how to free an entire nation. And they can't even free up their own economic, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's really sad, but those that are aware now and who are in a position to do something and make sure we stay unified, we can continue to grow. And that's that's really the purpose of me coming on tonight, is to kind of like make sure our spirits stay up, make sure we still got to fight, make sure we focus on the master teacher's freedom in whatever way he wants it laid out, so we can move forward as one and unified so we won't be offered up, because it's really a trying time. And so it's like a battle with our minds. The mind right now, it's a spiritual war. It's not physical. It's not really a physical war, because we're not fighting physically, because we can't win physically. It's really a mental war. It's a mental thing. When you wake up in the morning, your mind gets into this confusing state. What am I to do? Where am I to go? What are the next 30 days going to be like when the Antichrist when he takes office? You know what I'm saying? Then people are going, it always takes a catastrophe for Negroes to come together. It takes something like, a war, or, a food shortage or water shortage for everybody to put their differences aside. Then people are going to realize, oh, it ain't about that fez you wearing. It ain't about that God you praying to. Right now we need water. Right now we need food. Right now our children are dying. That's what it's going to take. It takes these type of catastrophes, and what we're trying to do in the United Nuwaupu Nation is prevention. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So why wait until we're at our wits' end, till there's nothing left for us to do? The money is removed. There is no resources. Then all of a sudden you got Nuwaupians that want to come together. Then the Hebrew Israelites want to come together now because they realize the God that they've been worshiping, we're waiting for their food from them to sacrifice themselves on an altar and whatever, using a six-pointed star that represents a constellation of beings who come through. That's what the six-pointed star is. They put the six-pointed star in their head as a shield of David when it's not. It's a shield of Pleiadians, a star constellation that their overlords come through. And that's why the same stars flew over Israel. And that Israeli star is an acknowledgement that they will worship these beings as El, as God, this being the son of Enlil, Baal-Hadad, these overlords. Lord does not mean something good. Just because you're called named the Lord doesn't mean you're good. You can be a landlord that evict you and put your ass out, and now you on the side of the curb, but he's still your Lord. You follow what I'm saying? Just because it's a Lord doesn't mean it's nice, or doesn't mean he's a good benevolent being. You can have an overlord or a warlord who will come through the land, and they will worship an overlord. The six mothers, good. They will worship that overlord the same way they worship the Lord in church, not out of love and compassion, but out of fear. And this is what they try to control you with, fear, that he's going to burn you up. He's going to send you to hell. This Lord had the audacity to create a hell in earth before human beings, because the religious world has acknowledged, all of them say hell is in the ground, hell is in the earth. So did this God create hell, create the punished place, create the punishment before the actual punishment? The sin was actually committed, because if he created the planet Earth in 6 to 7, rested on the seventh day, and hell is inside the earth, that means he created hell before the first sin was committed. And so he anticipated burning your ass up. He anticipated you being so the solution is coming up under Dr. Malachi York, the Nuwaupian Nation, our family, staying together, exercising your culture, speaking your language. You follow, give them back their religions. Stop worshiping their gods. Stop worshiping their images. Take their images out of your mind. Take them out of your wallets. Take them out of your, take them out of your practices. These ghost specters that you're worshiping, come into the light and come into that crap. Give it back to them, because it's draining you. It's taking your spiritual power, and we need our spiritual powers for ourselves. So that's the antidote, the Patarak. Read, if you got a chance, Earl Nixon. I'm not sure if you read our Patarak, if you read the actual facts, if you read our doctrine, but our doctrine is available. The master teacher, Dr. Malachi York, has written over 1,200 books on every subject. So you can pick a book out of there that suits your interest. Sometimes if you read a list of the books and you see, the Christ series or the God series or extraterrestrial series, actual fact, one of those books captures your attention, because everybody comes into this mission. Everybody comes into the doctrine at a different point. They come and say, well, I'm a Christian. I want to learn about more Christianity. So the master teacher wrote these books so people who are interested, whatever walk of life you're coming from, you'll be able to come into the doctrine and understand exactly which direction we're going in. And so that's the solution, and it's not just, it's easy to put a solution on the table, but there's many solutions. There's many solutions to let me say this. There's many problems, right, that you can point out. But the majority of the problem our master made it clear to us is religious doctrines that has separated us. And he compared us to a network of minds that are connected like a computer. And you are pre-programmed, right? When you're pre-programmed, let me tell you about the pre-programming. Pre-programming is this. When you're born into this society, in this matrix, there's already doctrines available for you. This is why Negroes think they're so smart. And it always cracks me up when a Negro comes and tries to argue with you using English. And when they use English, they have to go back to a language that Webster had created, the definition he created, put in a book for you to read. Then you pick that definition out and argue with us in regards to words that the Mukasu introduced to you, and you're using information that he laid out for you as if you have your own mind. You don't have your own mind when you're born in this society. They give you a mind. Just like a computer, when you buy a computer, what does it have on it? What does it have It has programs on it already. That computer does not come intelligent. It doesn't come with the gigabytes that it has. It doesn't come with the RAM. It doesn't come with the motherboard. It's built. And then you go buy the computer and you plug it up, and all of a sudden this computer's doing all these miraculous things. Why is it doing miraculous things? Because it was programmed by a programmer, someone who's a computer programmer. So when you're born, you're programmed from the very first age, and you have already on you a program. What is the program? It's called religion. And it is a virus. And once your computer, your brain, has a virus programmed on it, you can't communicate with the other network. Why can't you communicate with the network? Because your motherboard is off. You have a virus from Hebrews. You have a virus from Muslims, pale Arabs that wanted to enslave you. You have a virus from the Greeks or the Romans who wanted to, destroy you mentally. You have, the Sunni Muslims. You have the Nation of Islam. You have all of these Jehovah Witness doctrines, over 700 different types of Christians. You have all of these religious doctrines that you're forced to choose from. And then you adopt these doctrines as if you created them. And you defend these doctrines as if it's something that you came up with and you can prove without using their books. And so because we are all on a computer program from the Mukasu, someone else from his system, you need a antidote or an antivirus that will remove the virus from your network, and you have to be reprogrammed. And that reprogramming is wu-nuwaupu. It's nothing but facts. You've been programmed with belief. So your system is made to believe everything around you. And this is why most religious people aren't believers. You're not a believer, and they can't understand how you got off their network. You must believe. You must accept. You have to do this. Everything is accepted throughout life. And you believe it because that's a part of your programming. You believe in Santa Claus. You believe in heaven. You believe in hell. You believe in angels. You believe the Mukasu has dreamed his powers up over you. You believed in his superheroes. You believe in his movie characters. You believe he's the best bad guy and the best good guy. He's the best bad guy. He can flip, run, fly, jump, catch a bomb, stop the bomb in 1 second, remove the person from the bomb before the building, before the bomb blows up. You believe these things. And so that's what happens. So now when you have all of these different beliefs, you can't connect with your network. So when you run into a person that's a religious person, y'all begin to argue because y'all can't connect, because everything is based on what someone put in your system or your computer. So now we have to interject you, even though you don't even know that you have a virus. Most computers don't know that they have viruses. They just act weird. They act retarded. You turn it on, it's go do all types of mess up your pro. It just goes haywire. And then you have to, stick a disc in, the patrak, the actual facts, the affirmation. You have to, give it a command, right? A voice command, the voice of the master teacher, his tones, to realign the bytes to make sure that the doctrine, make sure that the virus in there is totally removed. Then you have to wipe it clean, right? So you have to religion had to be removed, and this took 30 years. This is why it took so long for the master teacher to get us up to the point where we could say, hey, now we're ready for wu-nuwaupu. Because your whole system had to be clean. You had to be reprogrammed. Now you're ready to operate on a network. But you have certain people who still have the virus that's trying to plug in and introduce these poisons to you. And this is the cause of separation. Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Who made him an ambassador? He doesn't know nothing about government. They don't know what they're doing. All these questions because that virus is still in you. right? And because the virus is still in you, you haven't found enough antidote to remove it. But the pataraks are there, the books are there, all of that information is there. Once you read it, you'll begin to cleanse yourself, and you'll feel the virus being removed. You'll feel the spell, that 6 ether being lifted. So that's a part of your antidote. And this is why, the master, it took a certain type of being to come, because he had to flood us and give us so much. Because of 400 years, he had to clean. Now, what do I mean by your computer? Your computer is your DNA. Your computer is your genetics. And inside your genes, your DNA, you took in all of that outside virus and covered up your true genes, your true natural nature. Now you're acting outside of your own network. You're acting in his system. You're caught in his system, and you don't know how to remove yourself from the matrix because you're wired in. You're on the web, and you're tying into the internet, and they give the handshake that takes place. You are a computer network. You're a computer web that you got to connect back with your Nagaru family, back with your ancestors, and you get your source and your power from your ancestors linked through your DNA. That's why it's important for you to chant and pray, because that sound barrier with your tones allows the block of outside forces. It allows you to block yourself from outside influences, because your tones create an actual sound barrier around the vocal area of your brain. The sound is responsible for hearing. The part that's responsible for sound. You create a sound barrier, and to keep out the outside negative influences that's keeping you from uniting, keeping you thinking that you know the way, and you don't know the way. If your ass got to get up and go punch a clock for the Mukasu and go into his system, a failing system, and you got to ask him for money, you are doomed. I don't care who you are. I'm not biting my tongue. You are doomed. Because when he removes his hand and removes that check from out of your hand, you will no longer be in check. That's how he's keeping you in check. When you, in your mind, when he make you think that it's a future and a system that's falling apart, that's in deficit, that's in debt, you are doomed. You have to be you have to get on the right side. And it takes all of us to do it. You have to create that psychic self-defense. And so I'm not saying that don't work. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't, Doosua is on there condemning people for working. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we should be working to unify, to create methods or economic institutions that'll work for us, that's fair to us, where you're not working and then your money is being taken. You work 40 hours for free. You trust him to work 40 hours that he's going to pay you. Right? And then when 2 weeks, you work 2 weeks in a hole hoping he's going to pay you. And then you get paid, and then he takes your money from that, and say, I got to pay somebody else. So he's taking your money from there. Then he gives you a check for you to go spend your money to somewhere else that, you got to pay taxes to again. Even when you go to school. You know what I'm saying? When you go to school and when you go to school, you're asking them, and you got to borrow money. Do you know what you realize what you're doing? You're asking him to borrow money so he can teach you information so you can work for him to make him more money. Look at that. When you borrow $100,000 bank for your education, you go to the school and say, I borrowed $100,000 from your friend. Because your friend is, and I want to give you this 100,000 so you can teach me. And whatever you teach me, sir, whatever I learn from you, sir, whatever I digest from you, I'm going to pay you to teach me this so I can work for you afterwards. I want to make you more money, but the money that I make for you and the crumbs that you give me, I want to pay you back for allowing me to be taught by you in your school. So that's what a loan is. And it's like a 30-year mortgage. Because now you have to work for him to pay him back the money he let you borrow to educate you out of books that you could have read yourself. It's a YouTube thing now with lawyers right now saying, I went to school. They were duped in school as well. The school said to them, well, when you come to, it's 90% chance that all lawyers will get a job after they graduate. But you know how they tricked them? Because they said, we didn't tell you what type of job. They included all jobs, Walmart, fast food, trash man. They said, so the lawyers are now suing because they say the paper is worth nothing. It's 4 lawyers to 1 criminal. And so now lawyers have to create crime. I mean, the system has to create crime in order to keep the lawyers in place. Without crime, lawyers wouldn't have a job. Without crime, police wouldn't have a job. So don't think they're trying to stop crime. No, they're not trying to stop crime. They're not trying to stop black on black crime. They're not trying to stop white on white crime. They're not trying to stop crime, period. If crime stopped, the system will fall. How else would they enslave you? How else would they sentence you? How else would they fine you if everybody just stopped if everyone would just say, you know what, I'm going to follow the law all the way to the letter? It wouldn't work. You know what they have to do? Create more laws for not following the law. Or create more laws for following the law. They create a law for following the law too close. In order for you to break the law, in order for them to stay in business, the judges wouldn't have a job, police wouldn't have a job. This is why they wear 2 faces like the god Juno. There's a god in Greek they call it, it's a so-called one of their deities in Juno that wears a smiling face and a frowning face. One is smiling, one is happy. He wears 2 faces. Why does he wear 2 faces? Because he makes you smile just to make you frown. He makes you frown just to make you smile. He'll say, come into court. I could sentence you to a year, but I'm not. I'm just going to give you a month. And you pray to him. You say, oh, God, thank you. You gave me just 1 month. He's still punishing you. So it's like you thanking him for getting your behind whipped. You know what I'm saying? The judge is the one who said, they say, in God we trust, but he's up there judging you. So the system has created around you, and you were born into the system, and you have adopted everything in their system, and you think the doctrine that they give you is free. And you're using their words against the people that's trying to help. You're using wu-nuwaupu, you're using words from his system, his dictionaries, his etymology references to try to come out against wu-nuwaupuans to say, that's not what it means. It's like, after now, if you don't know by now, it's almost too late. But the master said there is hope. There is hope for us. And that's what we gotta, that's what we have to focus on. And so if there's any questions, I think I've had this long-winded. I done got long-winded. And I'm sorry if I got long-winded and not, answer or tend to the questions. If you got any questions, feel free. But I'm saying all that to say, I said a lot, but I'm saying all that to say that, it's time, we have to stay united. We have to stay focused. We have to stay, don't let the Mukasu and his system and his allure, his lights of, thinking that, he has this power over us. He has a power of our spirit, that he has a power of our soul, that he has a power of our body, and he doesn't. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't. So everybody, if you need to sign a ledger. If you want to, I have some tea here. Thanks, good brother. If you need to sign a ledger, go to unnembassy.com and you can download the ledger. And I don't know if the site has the address up there. I don't know if it has the address, but I'll make sure that the site has the address. But unnembassy.com, sign the ledger. Make sure. I'm glad. Yeah, great. It's hopefully it's uplifting our people and making sure that we, that our master teacher did not come here to this planet for naught. He didn't come here to, for the Mukasu just to destroy his legacy. He did not come here for all his hard works just to be laid to rest because a few Negroes want to come out and make little stupid videos. I saw, it had me fun. I saw a video. I'm not even going to name the video, right? But I saw a video of, one of the classes that oh, is that light bothering y'all? I'm sorry, I didn't even know that light was in your face like that. I saw a, I'm gonna move it a little. Let me see. Okay, I just want to make sure y'all don't, this light's not, What's funny is that I saw this video, right? And it was one of the classes we did here, and they didn't edit or chop up what I was saying. They didn't do that because I think the class was too long, and I purposely made it long to see who was going to be, if they really wanted to try to. I'm just talking about naysayers and people outside. It was funny. So they just they just had my picture and they put my arrest records up, right? And I'm like, yeah, I've been arrested plenty of times. Why? Because I'm a fighter. You know what I'm saying? I'm a fighter. The thing is that I'm not afraid to be incarcerated. You know what I'm saying? I'm not afraid to be in a position, you know, be in a position where I'm timid of the Mukasu. I'm afraid to lose everything for the gaining of our people's independence. I'm not afraid of that. You know what I mean? So you could put my arrest records up. It doesn't matter. That's good. All the greats was arrested. You know what I'm saying? All of the, you know, Martin Luther King was arrested. Noble Drew Ali was arrested. Marcus Garvey was arrested. You know, because you think the Mukasu is not going to come at you? You know, you think that, you know, that they're going to look at you and say, hey, you know, he's teaching the truth. He's teaching facts. You're not going to be a target. You know, I don't respect any system that abuses and condones subjugation of people for economic rule and destruction of our spirit, minds, and bodies. I'm not condoning that. And so you're not going to make me feel any kind of way about me getting arrested or fighting a beast. I'm a fighter. And this is why I'm still standing to this day by the master teacher, by our president, by our father, by, you know, our nation, by our children. I'm standing by our elders who are still here, and I'm not going anywhere. So all the years, you know, the people been coming up with this slander and things of that nature, slandering the master teacher, calling me a so-called criminal. You know what's funny is that, you know, you're using the mind of the Mukasu. You know, you're using the mind of him by saying, what's a criminal? What is a criminal? You know, what's the drug? It's the face of Juno. I sell drugs, but you sell drugs, you're going to jail. I sell drugs to the pistol, but I can open up a pharmaceutical store. That's not a criminal. Why? Because the Mukasu and his settling, you know, his system of so-called laws that he created by this beast man. Now all of a sudden, his laws are the laws that have jurisdiction over us. No. You know, so I'm not even, it's just funny. I'm not even going to spend a whole lot of time on that, but it was just hilarious to me that people pick and choose that, but they won't address this doctrine. They won't address the facts. They won't address the books. They won't address the language. They won't address the prophecies. They won't address the fact that the master teacher put Donald Trump in your face years ago. You feel what I'm saying? They don't address those things. They don't address the prophecies of Gog and Magog coming together. They don't address the fact that the beast is rising up, called China, as one of the beasts that's spoken of in the last days that will rise up. They won't address that. You follow what I'm saying? They won't address the fact that the master teacher told us about the chip that's going in the arm and the cashless society that everything is moving to. They won't address that, you know, the European Union and Israel rising up and the third world war that's taking place. What about that? You won't address that. You want to stick your little self behind a computer, hide your face, and won't address us man to man. You want to try to take shots at our family, take shots at our tribe, and expect no one to say nothing. You know what I'm saying? Come on. You know, we're fighters here. The master teacher didn't raise no chumps. So if you think you're going to keep coming at us and think we don't have a right to defend our name, defend our legacy, defend his name properly in any form, and yes, we did go to Harlem. Follow that? We did go to Harlem and address the conscious community because, for one, we was invited because they claimed there was going to be a unified effort, so we made ourselves known. And why do we make ourselves known? Because it's Nuwaupians there. And these people have our Nuwaupian family in these circles of information, that misinformation, and they're teaching them wrong knowledge. So we went to go get our people. And we will still go get our people. That's what we went to do. That's how this nation was built. The master teacher didn't sit behind a desk, or he didn't sit behind, he sat behind a desk and typed and put the books, but he also went out and taught the people. He went and gathered the people that was being lied to. He went into the mosque and gathered Muslims and taught them that y'all are doing it wrong. He went to the 5%ers and walked out with new Ansars at the time. He went to the streets and debated on the street and taught them in their language, and they couldn't address him. He taught them in the prisons. He taught them wherever he went. So don't try to come at Nuwaupians talking about why we go to these forums. Why not? They mentioning our name. They calling on us. They calling on our people. They calling on us to defend it. So we're going to defend. And we won't have no problem with that. We came out unscathed. And the fact that we brought destruction to the conscious community. Because guess what? You don't hear nothing from them. Because if they step up to the plate now and start talking, it's going to happen again. And we're going to beat them with words. We don't have to fight. We don't have to put our hands, though we can fight. We can defend ourselves. And we are Nuwaupian men. So as Nuwaupian men, we're here to stand up and keep our legacy to make sure that our doctrine is protected, to make sure our nation's pristine purity and the facts remain irrefutable. So you're going to see us in these forums. So we don't need nobody's opinion on why this or why that. We made more Nuwaupians in that place than the conscious community did all the years that they've been teaching. We brought Nuwaupians out of there. You know how we know? Because the people were inboxing. Wow, the Nuwaupian brothers look sharp. I didn't know they worked like that. I didn't know. And we went, and personally, would not allow to continue our brother Prince York up there debating over and over, stepping to these people by himself. No, we don't roll that way. We are family. Regardless of your differences with him, regardless of your difference with any Nuwaupian. If you see them in a position where they're defending the name of wu-nuwaupu, our job is to step up and take control of the situation, take control of the doctrine, and make sure that they're dealing with a different type of being. They're not just dealing with someone that's afraid, they mentioning Pop is a child molester or a pedophile and calling them all kinds of names, and all of a sudden, grown men that claim to accept wu-nuwaupu, that claim to accept Nuwaupu, that claim to defend the master, all of a sudden, none of them step up and they quiet, and you got a nerve to condemn and talk trash about us going right to Harlem and stepping to them to their face, and we're not afraid. I got a right as a son, follow that, to put my life on the line for my father, and nobody's going to take that right away from me. I don't care who you are. You're not going to tell me where and how I can go and address and defend our nation. That's my job. So again, you're going to find us in these forums, and they know Nuwaupians are here, and they know that we are here to stay, and they can't touch our doctrine. And that's the reason why they started fighting each other, because they collapsed their own evils, their own negativity. They couldn't touch us. They went and started beating up each other, fighting each other. Muslims and Hebrews, they beating up on each other, mad because they don't know enough to defeat Nuwaupians, and we walked out of there just the way we did. So, hey. So if you don't like it, so what? And I'm talking to whoever has a problem with it. Like, don't take shots at us. Take shots at the people who've been lying on us for years. Take shots at the people who've been defaming his name since he's been incarcerated. A 71-year-old man sitting in prison, and these niggas out here who don't have no life is trying to beat up on a man that's in a rock, doing hard time because of his sacrifice for us. And we decide to step up, and you want to shoot darts at us? You want to take shots at us? We're not having that. Take shots at them. You know what I'm saying? Take shots at their God. Take shots at their doctrine. Take shots at their Bible. Take shots at the Quran and their leaders that have done nothing for us. So I'm just saying that for the record, and I'm going to leave it as what it is. You follow what I'm saying? I'm going to leave that alone, because you're going to see us more if they have problems with our father, they have problems with our nation, then we got a right to step across. What do you got to say? You got any questions? Ask us. Ask me. Don't be talking behind closed doors about Doosua York, who you said, you making videos about his name, Damon Pryor. That's a business name. That's not my tribal name. I have several names. You follow that? My name is Doosua York, Hawkeye York. I got a Native American name. I have a Liberian name. My Liberian name is Doosua Bassa Africa, a name given to me by the master teacher. I have an Arabic name, Asaid Isa El Mahdi. That's my name. All right? And it was a name given to me by none other than Asaid Al-Imam Isa El Hadi El Mahdi, the master teacher, Dr. Malachi York. And I have a right to use that name. And nobody's going to tell me what my name is. Come to me, man to man. Stop that behind the video crap. Stop that behind the scenes, because when I see you, you don't have nothing to say. When I ask you to come out, you don't have nothing to say. You want me to respond on Facebook. You want me to respond on YouTube. I do this man to man. We can talk face to face, and any question you had about my past, about whatever, my baby mothers. I got children. Of course I got baby moms who don't have men. Most men, intelligent men that want to leave a legacy, have children. They have baby mothers. What does that have to do with the doctrine? What does that have to do with the master teacher? What does that have to do with the legacy of him teaching since 1967? And the doctrine is irrefutable, and no religious person, no religious body, no religious clergy, no imam, rabbi, sheikh, guru has been able to answer any of his questions, has been able to defeat any books that he's written, hasn't been able to assist in the upliftment of our people, but he has. And so I'm kind of confused on why you'll keep coming at me as if I'm not just another man. You know what I'm saying? I'm a man just like you. So things in my life, in my experiences, if I start asking questions about what's in your closet, if I start saying who you sleeping with and where your girlfriends are and where your so-called criminal activities that you probably been involved with, ain't been caught yet, or whatever the case, you trying to point the finger, trying to play super righteous, but yet you duck behind a video. You post it on YouTube and comment in your likes and try to act like, Doosua, he's been around. I've been around since 1985. I moved in the community in 87. I've been around since the Ansar days. I was raised in this community. I have no mother or father. I have one father that adopted me and raised me in this community. That was Dr. Malachi Z.K. York. And I have pictures to prove it. I didn't pop out the sky. I didn't just fall out of nowhere on some, where's he come from? He's a Fed. I'm an agent. I'm this. What are you talking about? No proof. All conjecture. All hearsay. You putting up videos of my arrest record of me going to war with the devil. You know what I'm saying? You got my arrest record up of me battling Georgia because I was in court with them about our land, about our identity, about who we were, about who we are. So you're going to see me on their arrest records. You're going to see me face to face with them in court. And I will continue to go to court and fight the beast and fight for our freedom. That's just me. So if you don't like it, then you don't got to listen to this. Period. If you don't like me, most people that say I know him, you don't know me. You wasn't raised around me. You didn't live in my house. You didn't live in the community with me. Most people talking, I never met them. Most of the people I see are new faces. But it doesn't matter, because if we're family, we're family. If we're not, then we're not. But don't try to create the illusion that because you don't know what the embassy is doing, because you don't know what the master teacher laid out to me, speaking to me for years on the phone, and those that know, you follow what I'm saying? Because the job that I was given is a different kind of job. That's it. You have your job, I have mine. There's no conflict. We family. I'm not in your way, so stay out of my way. Why you jumping in my face every time it's something to be done for the freedom fight or something to be done on the behalf of the master teacher? All of a sudden, it's a problem. All of a sudden, he don't know what he doing. All of a sudden, it's these issues of division, and we doing this, and they, come on, stop that, because it's old. It's 2016. So we're going to see how far this go and what people take from it, because guess what? I can do this forever. Anybody that knows me, I can talk for 9 hours straight about the doctrine. You know what I'm saying? I can defend our president. I could defend our chief. I could defend against anybody. Hebrew Israelites, Nation of Islam, Sunni, Moors. I can defend us in the law. I can defend us in the international community. I can defend us in state court and federal court. And it's a fact. It's not conjecture. All right. So just, what's happening is the hate that's being emanated. All you're going to do is make me go harder. And when I go hard, it's no stopping me. So don't get in my way. Do not get in our way of what we're doing for our Father. Stop slandering on the side. Stop talking about the wu-nuwaupu nation. Stop talking about so-called we confused. We're not confused. Y'all placed us in a position where we got to assimilate into this society right? We got to assimilate our jobs. We got to get jobs. Our families are separated. So we got to work back for a beast, an animal that hates us. And so the confusion comes in that we're not on our own land. We didn't have confusion on our own land. We didn't have confusion when our master teacher was home. We didn't have confusion when we were congregating on our land and doing our rituals, Egyptian sites. And our women were working in the offices and handling business as the goddesses of our nation. And the men were building. We didn't have confusion. The confusion came from black devils. The confusion came from people on the outside that came in and created confusion and pointed fingers at those who were helping and ran those people away, like they tried to run me away. But I'm still here, and I'm here to stay. So all of those games stop. So again, if you want to, the time to unify is now. And I'm saying this because I waited until the time to talk. I waited for people to run their mouth. I waited for people to say, oh, he's this. I waited for people to keep talking about the master teacher, keep saying these things until they ran out of breath. Now everybody's out of breath, and now it's our time to talk. And when we talk, it's nonstop, and we're going to get the job done. And I didn't mean to go on that rant, but I needed to let the record be known and let the record be made straight. So I'm gonna leave this alone. I'm gonna get off because that can end this class. But I wanted to address that, and hopefully, we can pick it up another time where, I don't have to address this anymore because it's not necessary really to address it anymore unless somebody else has something to say, and then I'm going to speak up. I'm not going to be silent anymore. I was silent for a while. And I let people talk to see who was who, and people surfaced. They heads stood up, and I realized that a lot of lies were being believed. A lot of deceit and poison is still in the hearts and the minds of the people, and we have to remove it. We have to unify. So it's now or it's never. We can do it. We can come together. You know what I'm saying? We have to come together, and wherever you are, regardless of your differences, don't come with a fight, because we're not fighting you. I'm not fighting the family. I'm not fighting our wu-nuwaupu children, our elders. That's our tribe. That's our blood. We suffered together. We went through this together. We lost our land. We lost our father in prison. We went through these things together. So the fight is not towards you. I'm fighting the devil. And if you jump in my way and you get hit, then that's just you're just going to get hit. So I'm signing off. Why do? Love y'all.